Okay. Well,
So,
dear Kim,
yes. Am I to look at you or the camera?
you should better look at the camera.
Okay, so why
I
don't we
can sit
start over
here.
because I'm...
My first question is about your name and your just a little bit of your experience of working as a model for 12 years or 15 years.
in Paris for 12 years now.
12 years in Paris.
Yeah.
For what brands did you work?
I was primarily a high fashion model, runway model. So I began my career here in the cabine of Christian Dior, which means that I with some other models, they would actually make the collection on us. And what I learned there was very interesting because before I began this work, I thought that the designers were like getting divine communication, like the kings in the old days said they had this divine communication with the gods to tell them what they were supposed to do. And I thought that's what it was like for the designers, that there was one collection that was meant to be, that would come out every time. But I saw that in fact no, that the designer doesn't know. He or she is asking his or her assistants, what do you think about this, or what about that fabric, or you think it should be longer or shorter, and actually everybody's afraid to say anything. And so it just happened, the collection was made, but it could have been totally different as well. So that was a real education for me. So being in the cabine means that you do the fitting, they make the collection on you, then you show the clothes, you do the press show, you do the press, like the photos for Women's Wear Daily, that kind of thing. From there I did the cabine for one season, but then I went on to work for other designers, such as Givenchy and Yves Saint Laurent. In Milan I worked with Versace and Missoni, and just most of them, I have to say. I'm very thankful. I had a great time and a great career for many, many years.
Great. And at the moment you work for a model agency, right?
Yes.
Okay, you work for a model agency and you travel all over the world looking for beautiful ladies. You look for them in the United States, Paris and other countries. And after you find, please tell about what you do during this job. So how do you find them? What do you speak with them about? And how do you choose them?
Okay. Yes, my job now is that of what they call scout. So I'm employed by an agency here in Paris. And
what is its name?
It's called Crystal Models. It's been in existence since 26 years now. Their specialty is high-end advertising, so beauty campaign kind of type. And the clients always want new talent, new faces, great models. So that's my job. I have to go out and find them wherever they are. So I travel a lot. I travel mostly in Europe, but I do travel to the States and Canada a bit. And I guess the way it works is before leaving, I will be in touch with the agencies in the destination to where I'm going and set up appointments to meet the type of models that I think could correspond to our market. Before I even do that, I'm going to look at the websites of all the agencies and choose the girls that I would ideally like to see if they're in town and if they're not already placed in an agency in Paris. So when I arrive then, we have a casting set up where I will meet these models, and then I have a few minutes between 3 and 5 minutes maybe with each of them to determine if I believe they have the potential to work in Paris. And Paris, just like you say, is the most, along with New York City, the most demanding market. I call it the New York of Europe. Here there are the biggest clients, the best clients, but they also want the best models.
What do you ask them when you have this 3-5 minutes for each girl? What do you say?
Well, of course, as Catherine Deneuve says, everything passes through the eyes first. So I'm looking at them immediately. But at the same time, I'm picking up whatever energy they're sending out. And that, well, psychologists actually have done studies on that. They say that people tend to make up their minds about someone in the first 4 seconds. I mean, you can barely walk into a room and say hello before 4 seconds is over. So models may or may not know this, but that is so important, that the energy that they enter the room with. The casting begins on the other side of the door before they even enter the room to see me. They have to have this energy, this power, this personality, their own unique brand of it already in them and coming out of them before I set eyes on them. When that happens, I know it right away. I feel it, I see it. Anybody would. So I'm looking for that. Not only the physical parameters, the right height and measurements and age, and that you have a lot of wiggle room, we say, with that. That's not so strict as people might think. But what is imperative is this energy, this sparkle, this personality, this way to project from the inside out. That's what's going to get my attention, because I know that's what's going to get the client's attention, because the client knows that's what's going to get the buyer's attention.
Okay, and what do your clients want nowadays? Your clients in Paris and United States, what do they want to see in the models?
Well, there's the inside and the outside. On the outside, the trend overall is classic beauty, timeless beauty. Whether it be blonde, brunette, or redhead is one thing. I personally feel there's not enough of a market open for types of beauty beyond that, more, as we could say, ethnic beauty or exotic beauty, but bon, that's what the clientele is looking for right now. For Paris now, the Paris market, the general requirements would be like 176 or what, 5'9.5" minimum, up to 6 feet or 182, and in age between 16 and 24. It depends. It really depends on the client and what the job is for. And then there's the inner model, where, as I said, they really want to feel something. You can't even, in French we say that je ne sais quoi. We don't know exactly what it is, but it's unmistakable. It's a pull, it's an attraction, it's a fascination, and that comes from inside. So that's what I'm looking for. Someone who's telling me that they're a full beauty, not just on the outside. That they have depth, that they have something interesting. It could be a sense of humor, it could be a mystery, I don't know. It's going to be theirs, but they have to make me see it and feel it.
Okay, after you find a great future model, what is happening to her after that?
Again, it depends on her own situation. Sometimes they're young, they're 16 years old, they're still in school, so we will need to work during their holiday and their school availability, and sometimes they're a full-time model. Maybe they finish school early, or they're already out of school. In any case, our goal is to get them into Paris, because the clients in Paris want to see the girls in person. They have such a huge choice that they want to see the girl in person in order to get that feeling from her. What is her energy? What is she all about? How attractive? What's her attractive factor? Some other markets, like Germany or Spain, or I'd say lesser markets, they don't necessarily need the girls in town so much. So that the clients can book the girls from wherever they are without seeing them. That's not the case with Paris. We need to get them into town. So, depending on the situation and their availability and the season, because there are seasons for different kind of work here in Paris, we will arrange with them and their agency from their own city when they can come. And then we'd like that when they come, we will already arrange for them an apartment, a place to live. We want them to be here for a minimum of 1 month, 2 months is better. And we will also arrange for them to do test shootings with photographers in Paris, because the quality of photography in Paris is just very different than what you find anywhere else, including New York. So we need a book with French pictures. That's what the clients like. And so when they have at least a start of that, don't need a whole book, but some pictures showing what they can do in this market through the French way, the French eye, we will make a composite for them and send them out to castings. And like the bookers tell the girls all the time, look, we can get you ready, we can put you in direct contact with the clients, but selling yourself is your job. That's up to you.
Please tell a success story about how you met some girl somewhere and what happened next.
Okay, I have a few, but my first is my favorite. It was by now maybe 10 years ago. I had just started scouting with this company, not very long, but I had just decided that I was going to find a fantastic girl. I just decided that. So it would be. And I remember it was a Saturday. I was doing errands with my 2 young children. They were quite small at the time. And we were in a metro. It was packed. You could hardly move. It was a very busy station on a Saturday, so hard to make any progress very quickly. But through the crowd, I saw this, like that much of a face going by. And I said, whoa, she looks beautiful. I think. I just saw the profile. So I grabbed my kids and we started fighting our way through this crowd. And finally I caught up with her. And then I just saw the back of her head and I didn't know what she looked like when she turned around, but I just lunged at her to catch her. I tapped her shoulder, still keeping my kids close by, and I said, excuse me.
Hello? We would love to black tea, please.
Black tea, yes.
And for me, a caramel cappuccino.
Caramel cappuccino or black tea. Darjeeling tea or grey tea? Black tea.
Darjeeling or Earl
Grey
Grey.
tea.
English or Indian?
English.
Okay.
So, you saw her?
So she turned around, and my word, when she turned around, it caught my breath. And I was sure she was a model. I was sure she was already in a big agency. But I had to ask her, and I said, excuse me, are you a model? And she said, no. I said, really? Well, I work in a modeling agency, and I think you could be a great model. She said, really? I said, yes. So she said, okay. I asked her how old she was. She told me 16 years old. And I said, no one ever told you before you could be a model? She said, well, a couple of times, but I didn't really do anything about it. I said, okay, look, it's a very busy station here. I can hardly hear you, but I'm going to give you my number. Talk to your parents, and I'd like you to call me. And I said, and normally you should not give your number to other people, but I'm going to ask you for your number because if you lose my number, it's going to be a disaster. So she did give me her number. I remember I went home that night, I said to my husband, I said, I saw a fantastic girl in the metro. This does not happen very often, I should tell you. And he said, oh, great. So I waited 1 week, and she didn't call me. So 1 week later, I called her, and I said, hello, do you remember me? We met in the metro. And she said, oh, yes, I was waiting to see if you would call me. Okay, I was waiting to see if you would call me. But anyway, we're talking, so that's good. And she did come in with her parents. They were not for it. They were teachers, both of them, and the father was more open, but the mother said, I don't know why someone should do this kind of business and make a living with their looks. And I told her, okay, but I did it myself, and I can tell you that it can be a great business with a lot of opportunity. It can be a great school too, and it really is. So this girl who was in high school, oh, that looks great, thank you.
That's it.
Yes, thank you. We're here in the beautiful Printemps, what do you call it? La Coupole restaurant. It's very nice. So this girl was in her last year of high school and at a period of her final exam, so it was a very tough period for her, scholastically. And as I talked about, we arranged for her to do a test or two with some photographers, and the girl was very shy, and she said to me again, do you think I could be a model? And I said, yes, most definitely. She said, all right. She took our faith in her, and she went with it. She did tell me later that other people stopped her on the street, but she didn't want to follow through, but she said because I was a woman, I had 2 kids with me, she decided to give me her number. And do you know that she was put up for a casting by a big cosmetic company. They were looking for this girl. They'd been for their girl for months. They were searching for the right girl all over Europe and even in New York. And they weren't coming up with the girl they wanted. You can probably guess the end of this story. It was only her third casting. We said, what the heck, she's gorgeous. She doesn't have any experience, she has hardly any pictures, but she's got that inside, that inner something. She was magnetic. And we sent her, and the client really liked her. Now, it was a long process. There were many, they would see a lot of girls all over Europe and even in the United States, and they would narrow the list down until she got on the short list. And then there was this final casting with the client flying into Paris to meet the final group of girls. The only problem was she had her final exam that day for her high school diploma. So the bookers are saying, well, okay, we tried. You know, we have to respect the fact that she's 16 and she has to finish and get her diploma and all. The girl said, I'm going to talk to my teacher. And this girl convinced her teacher to let her take her final exam on a different day. I don't know how much you know about the French school system, but that might be the first time it's ever happened here in this country. I don't know, but she did it. That's what I'm talking about. She had it in herself. She had the will, the desire, and she knew how to bring out what was in her and captivate people, starting with her teacher. So she was able to do that casting with the client, and that little lady got that 5-year worldwide exclusive cosmetic campaign, her first job. And they were looking all over the world for the person, and then they found it in her. And I'm so happy about that and so proud of that and proud of her. She made that happen.
Nowadays she's working?
Yes. She's very, very successful.
She's famous?
Yeah, she's a very, very good girl.
And some other favorite story?
Another girl who also went on to be a very big model. I went to a small town in Germany, and I happened to see her on a small runway. It was nothing famous, no big deal. And the client had dressed her and everybody else up basically to look like rich, middle-aged housewives. I mean, the styling was horrible, the makeup, in my opinion, was horrible, but I could see behind all that this amazing looking girl. I didn't know anything more about her. I just saw her backstage because it was like a, how would you say that? A symposium of different designers showing. So I got in and I was going backstage looking at different girls, and she was in the lineup. It was for rehearsal for this show, but she had on this crazy hair and horrible makeup and housewife clothes. But I noticed her. So I went back around to watch the rehearsal, and when she came on stage, literally the hair on my body stood up. She was electric, even in those unflattering clothes. And I knew I had a winner. I knew that girl had star quality. In fact, she had come for these shows from India. She was not a girl who was in Europe very often. And Indian girls were not very popular or in demand. They were not in demand. Like I said, you know, exotic beauty was not very much in demand then and even now. But that didn't matter. It wasn't whether she was Indian or not Indian or anything else. She was her, and she was a star waiting to happen. So anyway, of course, after rehearsal, I went up and spoke to her, and she, again, didn't know exactly what to think of me or what I was up there. But I did keep in touch with her, and she went back to Calcutta, where she was from. Eventually, I kept in touch with her. It was a big process of getting her the visa and so many setbacks. But I never gave up, and finally we got her to Paris. Oh my word. And it was like a house on fire. I mean, she just took Paris by storm, and she was a star. She had it in her. She didn't have the pictures, she didn't have the experience, she had it in her, and she knew how to communicate. And she's a very well-known name now.
Thank you.
It doesn't happen very often, but when it does, you remember.
Great. And during last 30 years, 40 years, how did model business changed? By nowadays, now it's 23rd century, and what were the changes? The most
Well, I can't go back as far as 40 years, but I can go back close to 30 years. And the primary difference, that, I mean, is obvious, is that now everybody wants to be a model. Thank you. That wasn't really the case. Before, modeling was not that mainstream. I mean, it existed, of course, but it didn't have the notoriety and the prestige that it does now. But at the same time, it didn't have so many models or would-be models in the marketplace. There weren't so many agents. There are agencies everywhere. There are agencies, as you probably know, as far as Siberia. There are agencies everywhere. There are scouts all over the world. The market is flooded with models and hopeful models. It's become a lot more of a business. The clients are a lot more demanding. They want perfection. They want it perfection from the outside, and they want it from the inside. They want absolute professionalism. I'm not saying they didn't before, but it was a little more loose. It was a little more fun. It was a little more, this is one big party kind of thing. I'm not talking about drugs and all that. That you can find anytime, anywhere, at any era if you want. But just a more, budgets were easier. Maybe you'd stay an extra day on location just to enjoy the beach, for example. Now that's more rare. It's a lot more strict economically. So I guess primary differences are it's more mainstream, more people wanting to be models, bigger contracts. You can make a lot more money now than you could before, but
for example, what about
a lot
money?
More competition. Oh, well, again, it's like the you know, very upper strata can make multi-millions. They can make in a year. They can make, I mean, in a year they can make several $1 million. I'd say before there was a larger middle class of model. Before there were more models able to make a very good living, a six-figure income, you know, easily. And then as the whole world economy shifted and, you know, rearranged itself, it of course hit fashion and advertising. And I think it squeezed out the middle class model a lot. I think some people got way richer, and a lot of other models just don't make as much money as they might have 10, 20 years ago. So maybe less democratic in terms of earning capabilities. That's what I would say.
How do they struggle? Because the market is huge. So what should they do? What they must do to be the best and to win this competition?
Competition is a good word because, and so is winning. I've always, from the very beginning, considered modeling, a professional model, to be like a professional athlete. In the sense that, like an athlete, a model is born with certain physical attributes. You know, they came free. They're physical gifts. But just that is not going to take them to the winner's circle, or first across the finish line, or on the cover of a magazine, or working with any designer. You have gifts, and you have to know how to develop them. Everybody has what I call a unique package. It's that unique combination of their outer selves and their inner selves. And in fact, I even went on to set up a website and a training program about that. I call it Inner Modeling. So I have a site, innermodeling.com, where I'm trying to get across to people what I learned early on about making it in this business. It really has so much more to do with how you look. So much more than that. So the client wants to see, of course, the general physical parameters they're looking with, and that there's only so much you can do about that. As a model, like an athlete, your job is to make it the best possible in terms of your health, the quality of your hair, your skin, your shape, and all that. But they want just as much and sometimes more. They want to feel a person who's alive. Like this story I told you about this young girl who got the contract that every model was trying to get, and she got it with she wasn't the tallest girl, she wasn't the most beautiful, but she had something in her that she could get through to the client, and the client liked it. So we want girls who are able to communicate that know who they are very confident about it, and just can convey a lot of personality, make the client feel confident too in their ability to sell their product for them. And I do, one of the things I share with these young models is that what I learned in my own career, people will believe about you what you believe about yourself. They don't know you. They're taking their cue about you from you. So you have a very small window to let someone know what they need to believe about you, what they need to know about you. Like I said, the casting begins on the other side of the door before you even walk in. So that's what they're looking for, someone with that knowledge of themselves, that ability to project that, communicate that, and to be the best they can be physically as well.
Well, you spoke a lot about inner beauty, and there are lots of models, and each one wants to be the best. So how can the girls develop their inner beauty, their magnetism, their charisma, everything? What should they do?
Right. Good question. As I said a minute ago, it begins with knowing yourself. Know thyself. And understand the fact that there are different parts of yourself. And discovering them and developing them. I'll give you an example. When I began modeling, I came over from California, where I was running around outside on the beach, in t-shirts and barefoot. I was not at all living a haute couture lifestyle. But when I began, my first job in Paris was for the cabine of Christian Dior, where they're making these garments on me, and then we're meant to go out and be photographed in them, be filmed in them, be on the runway for the sole purpose of selling them. And these dresses were selling for tens of thousands of dollars, and I had no experience with that. And as I said, at that time there was no fashion TV, there was no model.com. I didn't have any point of reference to look at what do people do in those dresses. And so I didn't know what to do, how to sell it. But I realized that I could imagine being someone who would own a dress like that. And I got in touch with that part of me. The part of me, how would I be if I owned that dress? What would I be doing? Where would I be going? And for each garment, I became that person. And I had a story in my head of what I was doing in that dress, where we were going, just who I was being, owning that dress. And that was my secret for every job I did. Every outfit, in every show, every shooting, I was being the me, that part of me that would fit a story I would imagine around that garment or that product. It would be years later that I would just come across the quotation by the German philosopher Johann von Goethe, when he said, before you can do something, before you